Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the formal kickoff of the 15th anniversary Aspen Security Forum. We are so grateful to have all of you with us here. Many of you already joined us last night in a Greenwald Pavilion for a great conversation on China, both from the American perspective and from a Singaporean perspective. And we're just happy to see all of you. We are meeting here, as Joe Nye, our chairman, already said yesterday, in incredibly turbulent times. On the positive side, this year more than 4 billion citizens in over 60 countries are eligible to vote. I think that's a record for most ever voting in one year. Yet at the same time, conflicts and war are consuming Ukraine, Gaza, Sudan, and others. We'll hear about all of those conflicts here on these stages. And we're seeing the very ugly rise of political violence, both here in the United States and elsewhere around the world. In chaotic times like this, people seek security. And so around the world, you hear people shouting about their grievances, and thunderous voices of self-importance are in danger of drowning out what we're trying to do here, which is to be the calmer voices of the majority and of the center. Some people celebrate strong men, they're calling for the survival of the fittest and the strongest, and they're stirring up hatred against each other instead of listening to learn. This is really personal to me. My grandfathers fought on opposite sides of World War II, a conflict which was instigated and fueled by dangerous populists in Europe. And it was actually the last time that we saw tanks rolling across the steppes of Ukraine. And my father died while serving as a diplomat in Pakistan during the rise of ideologues in South Asia. So the mission of this forum is deeply personal to me, as it is to all of you, which is why you've flown from around the world to gather here. So instead of shouting our grievances, over the next 3 days, we're not about the survival of the strongest or the fittest. We're about collaboration. We're about doing better because we're going to create new, innovative, interesting partnerships to actually solve some of these really thorny issues that the world is dealing with today. Our most enduring successes as a nation and as a world have always come from collaboration. Although we tend to celebrate individuals. Look at the creation of NATO, the strongest alliance ever seen on the face of this earth. We have Secure General Cavoli with us later today. The creation of the United Nations, the teamwork that made America's moon landing possible. We have a panel on space coming up right after this. And the cooperation between the universities, private companies, and government during the Cold War that made the United States an unstoppable technology superpower. So this year, we're celebrating teamwork. And as Joe always reminds us, we're going to listen to each other to jointly come up with solutions that would perhaps have eluded each of us alone. You must all believe in this mission too, because we have been happily overwhelmed by all of your response, by our speakers who are cabinet level and senior officials who flew in from over a dozen countries around the world and who hail from NATO, the EU, and other international institutions, who represent at the highest level and on a bipartisan basis the U.S. Defense Department and the Armed Services, the State Department, Homeland Security, Justice, Commerce, the National Security Council, and the U.S. Senate. And we have with us numerous iconic nonprofit leaders, U.S. business leaders, young innovative startups, and most importantly, last but not least, our rising leaders who are the new generation who are going to lead this world into a more positive future. So we're grateful to all of you who braved heat waves around the country, worldwide elections, and thunderstorms yesterday and the day before to be here with us. So working creatively and together is the mission for all of us here for the next few days, and not just those of us on stage. So I want all of us to ask ourselves, what person are you going to meet this week that you didn't know before? Who's going to help you see your world a little bit differently? What creative partnership are you going to create to solve a problem? I'm asking all of us here, in the formal sessions, but also in the breakouts, at the lunches, at the meetings, to use the backdrop of these stunning Rocky Mountains to take a step back, remind ourselves why we each chose these noble professions, whether it's diplomacy, military service, being an innovator, being a journalist. Why did we choose these professions? I think it's to work together and to envision and create a more positive world. Thank you to all of you for being here. Let me now say, none of this would happen without the important support of our sponsors, and we're grateful to them. We have great partnerships with each of them. And so I want to tell you on behalf of our chairs, Condi Rice and Joe Nye, and on behalf of Dan Porterfield, Margot Pritzker, Elliot Gerson, the leaders of the Aspen Institute, thank you to all of you sponsors who make this possible. Google, MasterCard, McKinsey, Microsoft, MITRE, the Walton Family Foundation, AWS, the Financial Times, Lockheed Martin, the Rockefeller Foundation, Govini, Intel, American Airlines, Anduril, Beacon Global Strategies, Boeing, Gecko, Pyron, Citi, Mayer Brown, and Zscaler. We are grateful to you. Make sure to check out the Google Pavilion, where there will be a lot of additional programming, and the Lockheed Martin Zero Gravity photo booth, where I think there's an upside-down cat. I saw that this morning. You can ask the senior leadership of Lockheed about that in a minute. And of course, none of this would happen without the unbelievable Aspen team that makes this all possible. From the Aspen Institute, we have Dulcie, Morgan Walsh, Jordan, Matt, our comms team, John Permis, and everyone else. We couldn't do without you and our fabulous volunteers, and please hold your applause. Last but not least, I would love our Aspen Strategy Group Dream Team to please all stand up and be recognized, because you do amazing work for months getting this ready. Neve King, Leah Batunis, Anna, Deb, Alana, Emily, Karina, Matilda, and Chris. Please stand up. Come on, guys. Great. We have one change in programming today, and that is that the Ukrainian defense minister really wanted to be with us. So instead of Andriy Yermak at 10:30, please stay tuned, and we're going to hear from the Ukrainian Minister of Defense, Umarov, directly about what's going on in the battlefield there. And it is now my pleasure to introduce a really important panel on space, called The Final Frontier. But frankly, it has become the next frontier in geostrategic competition and risks. Threats to our critically important satellite communications infrastructure, anti-satellite weapons, the threat of nuclear weapons in space, the list goes on. There's no better panel to talk about this than our representatives from across the government and private industry. We have General Jeff Kruse, the Director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. We have Robert Lightfoot, the president of Lockheed Martin Space and former associate administrator of NASA. We have General Stephen Whiting, the commander of U.S. Space Command. And to bring it all together and interview everyone, we have Lauren Grush from Bloomberg. Thank you. Please join us on stage.